So you might remember something I said on Thursday that is happening today. You'll see a new one on Sunday going,
oh my god, I read Paper Towns, it was awesome, it was amazing, I love John Green.
So whether that happens or not, you will be here to see it. And today you are going to be seeing that because I read Paper Towns and I absolutely loved it. Salutations! Welcome to Loving the Language of Literacy. My name is Sophia Lee and today I'll be discussing Paper Towns by John Green. If you do not know what Paper Towns is about, it follows a boy named Quentin who has lived next to Margo Roth Spiegelman for most of his life. He's always seen her as this marvelous, magnificent creature that is so much larger than life because of how much liveliness she brings to just the atmosphere and anyone that she's around. And he's been admiring her for afar for quite a long time, but one night she sneaks into his bedroom window and asks to borrow his car. And the two of them have this whirlwind kind of night where they play all these pranks on people, they get even, and they generally have such a fun, albeit unrealistic, time together. They part at 6 a.m. the next morning, and he's hoping that things will be different, that they might actually be something, whether that's friends or more. What ends up happening is that she completely disappears. She goes off the grid, and everyone at their high school is kind of thrown for a loop. They don't know what to do without her because she was such a center of attention and just talk and buzz. Quentin and his friends try to continue with life as usual, but he is adamant about trying to find Margo and where she went because she was known to run away and leave clues behind. And he finds one of these clues and he spends the rest of the book trying to follow them. There is so much hype going around this book, especially with the trailer dropping on Thursday, as well as just people loving John Green. It took me such a long time to read this novel. First of all, I wasn't the biggest fan of The Fault in Our Stars, so I just didn't want to read it, and I was like, I don't want to be part of this whole fan craze that everyone else is. Even though all of my friends in California who read The Fault in Our Stars and love John Green, have read Paper Towns, they say it's even better and that it's more awesome and just more relatable, I still wasn't sold on it. Then my school librarian, whose opinion I trust and value very much, told me to read it just because she said that even if you didn't like The Fault in Our Stars that much, Paper Towns was something different and more unique, and I still didn't want to read it. And then the trailer dropped last Thursday, and I was convinced. I was like, oh my god, this trailer is amazing. I need to read the book that's behind all of this. So that's what I finally did. John Green is basically seen as a god of the young adult contemporary genre, and everyone loves The Fault in Our Stars, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But I was pleasantly surprised with how much I loved Paper Towns. Now I need to see the movie Paper Towns, which is coming out on the 24th of July, which I'm so mad about. They pushed the release date back. Now it's like, oh my god, I've read this wonderful book and now I need to see it translated on a screen because I think from what the trailer showed, it's going to be extremely accurate. I spent one of the best $4 of my life on Kindle to get the book, and now I need the hard copy. The premise of Paper Towns was quirky and extremely well executed, and the plot just followed through with what the synopsis said, and it was extremely well developed. The pacing was absolutely perfect. It kind of went off of a 3-act structure, which I appreciate. Characters, they were just an all-around awesome cast, from the major to the side characters. Each of them had such their own distinct personality and voices and just character traits in general that John Green really got a chance to develop on, even without the book going on forever. The writing style, do you need to even ask how much I loved it? It was different from The Fault in Our Stars, mostly because I think The Fault in Our Stars, I've heard this from other people who didn't like it as much. They thought it was extremely unrealistic and just a perfect movie magic love story. But Paper Towns, also unrealistic. It still had this spin to its voice and its character that was different than The Fault in Our Stars. My finishing reaction was, this is a John Green ending, but when I say that, I don't mean anyone died. It just left you with the same feeling of just wanting more while still thinking that it was perfect what you actually got. Now I'm going to have to say goodbye to all the people who have not read the novel, and if you haven't, I don't know what you're doing because I was strictly against John Green. I was like, I don't like The Fault in Our Stars that much. I think he's been hyped up way too much, and that his books are good, but they aren't worth it. But I can't even imagine why I said that anymore, because I loved Paper Towns. I give it a 5 out of 5 stars, a 95%, and just read it, come back, and discuss it, okay? Goodbye. Welcome back, non-spoiler people. Something I predicted, and what actually ended up being the whole moral theme, if you want to get that deep into the book, was that Quentin's journey for Margo was, yes, it was a journey for Margo, but it was also just a terrific journey and representation of just self-discovery, because he's in his senior year of high school. It's a month before graduation. He's just gonna get out of Orlando and go start his life, basically. But before you do that, you really need to discover who you are, set some boundaries, learn things about yourself. And through his quest for Margo, he learned that a lot. But also, what happened was that he discovered that Margo was not all that met the eye. In fact, she was kind of less, while still being more, than what meets the eye, because he put her on such a pedestal, and even from the trailer I could tell that he was destined to fail in terms of his opinion of Margo, just because of how much he revered her. And the way he just said this,
the way I figure it, everyone gets a miracle.
He's very dependent and reliant on Margo in terms of her being his miracle. And I'm wondering if that will stay true throughout the entire book and or movie, or whether it'll actually become more that he can be his own person and be independent and just be without Margo being there to kind of define or make his life more interesting. It felt like such an extreme John Green kind of thing to say, and it's how the book starts out, as well as just the fact that he says that Margo Roth Spiegelman is his miracle is just, I'm not going to get all preachy spiritual on you, but I feel that people shouldn't leave their happiness in the hands of others, and he was doing that by just putting so much faith into Margo and who he thought that she was, that he was going to be disappointed with who she ended up being. While he was not quite disappointed, so to speak, he definitely saw by the end of the book that she is a real person, not just someone he can admire to no end. And on that note, in my trailer talk, I also said this: I don't quite understand how Q can love Margo without actually knowing who she is. For an example, one of the things that he said about her was that she was the most fantastically gorgeous creature God had ever created. And while, yes, that is a compliment to her looks, he really just thought of her as so much larger than life and what everyone else is. But she really, through his looking for her and just going through her bedroom and little clues that she left for him, they portrayed a real person. Quentin basically created someone that wasn't even real, because Margo, if anything, she was real. But throughout the story, there were so many good quotes that were just about discovering yourself, and that's what he did through looking for Margo. He discovered about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and trying to see where they're coming from, and how talking and imagining about someone else can teach you a lot more about yourself and your own hopes and dreams and desires rather than the other person. What I did love was that Margo combated his admiration by being completely and entirely unapologetic. She knew perfectly well what everyone else thought of her, or at least the idea of who she was, and she was just like, that's not me, and I'm a real person. The ending was so expected, in my opinion, and I think they're actually going to change this in the movie, because at the very end of the trailer there was this moment when Margo was in this red dress and the fancy hair and everything, and she was at a party and she kissed Q, and I think they might end it with Margo coming back with Quentin and the rest of the gang to the graduation party, since they weren't actually able to go to graduation. Or maybe she'll show up at graduation. I have no clue how they'll treat that. Something else that I'd like to bring up as a point of discussion, and more of just presenting my own opinion, and I'd definitely like to hear yours, is that I don't consider Margo even as a main character. She obviously played an extremely prominent role in the story and its motion, but at the same time, I didn't feel like she had much of a role besides being this kind of motivator and inciting factor for Quentin, because obviously Quentin's the protagonist, but I felt so much from even Radar and Ben's and Lacey's side arcs as characters, and something I thought was quite an interesting concept was Margo's idea that everything is uglier up close. This could go on the completely cliche route in terms of my opinion, or it could just be a truth, because what she explained was that everything up close, you see the rust, you see the damage, you see the wear of time on just life in general and people and things. But in the cliche perspective is what makes things beautiful and what makes things real. That is also what she was trying to tell Q, in my opinion, about herself, because Q insisted that she was not uglier up close. But obviously, if you look and analyze someone or anything with a magnifying glass, you're going to find fault with them, and sometimes that fault is too much to handle. So I thought that was such an interesting concept that John Green presented so well. And another thing, I felt this with the book All the Right Places by Jennifer Niven, which was just the desire to wander and travel and road trip and just see the world, because Paper Towns just puts you in such a feel-good mood of just wanting to go live your life and don't stay on the safe side, which I thought was just the brilliant overall message, besides the whole you shouldn't judge people on what you think they are, but the idea of just live. Lastly, there was a quote at the very end of the book which I loved, and I completely agree with, of course, because that's what you do with John Green quotes, and that is not actually his quote, I believe. It's Emily Dickinson's or someone, but Margo was quoting her, and that is, "Forever is composed of nows," which was on page 296. And again, that brings me back to the whole you should just live concept and lesson that I gleaned from the book. And that is what Margo was trying to tell Q, even though it ended with them not being able to be together. And I never actually, as a reader, assumed that they would end up together. Just left him with such a more powerful message than anything that her being with him could do, because she seems like the kind of person that he definitely couldn't pin down, and she just is such a wild, free spirit and soul. And definitely, I believe if this book were to continue that they would remain friends, but I don't think a romantic relationship would even be in their future. Anyways, overall, I thought Paper Towns was a brilliant novel. I had some issues with it just because of how much of a pedestal Quentin put Margo on and how perfectly John Green presented their entire relationship and dynamic. And of course, it's unrealistic, but I still love the story. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Tell me in the comments below what your thoughts were on the different discussion points I brought up and what you just thought of the book, because I'm dying to know from someone else, because I need to discuss and get my fangirling out. Anyways, keep calm and read on, and I will see you in a new video soon. Goodbye!